The hell are you supposed to be?
I'm vengeance.
What's up? What's up, guys? AW here. Oh, here. AWL here. Airman Order. My bad. My bad. I hope you're all having a good well, Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. I was, sometimes you get the wrong day. Sometimes I was thinking it's Thursday, but yeah, it's Wednesday. What's up? I'm waiting for Blinded because Blinded really wants to do this stream with me. Okay. I hope he sees this. Comes on. I mean, I sent him an invitation. Yeah, it's a lot of people. A lot of people don't like the Acolyte, and they're really shitting on this past episode. Specifically, we're gonna go after Grace. Okay. I'm blinded. If you're around, buddy, everything is set up. Everything's set up. I have the stream right here. I have it right here. So if you want to come in, because we're going to talk about this episode, and I know you want to talk about this. What? This can't be right. It's funny. All right, yeah, okay, Mo. All right. Hey, Mo, I'm glad you're here, buddy. William. Good to see you too, buddy. No, it's always gonna be Roman Reigns, though. Always. But you know what? You come up with these streams, I never see my wrestling streams. Why you never? When I do wrestling, you're never there, man. You're never there, buddy. Come on my wrestling streams, or show up and chat my wrestling streams. Okay. Always welcome, Mo. But yeah, I'm waiting for Blinded. I like the episode yesterday. There's a lot of people that didn't like it, obviously. It's just so it's very very, I don't know what I said, mixed. Very mixed. You're gonna regret those words, buddy. You're gonna regret those. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get. I think I'll just start this without him because I don't want to wait all night. And I know he wants to talk about this. My buddy DeGrasse, maybe my buddy DeGrasse wants to come on. You know, I don't want to wait all night either. All right, because I haven't. Shut up. Wait, it was like 3 months ago. All right, I'm gonna pull this up. Blind will come in when he's ready. I hope.
Does that count as deglazing?
In 5 years, we'll be doing this, but in Japan.
In 5 years, my family.
There we go. There, right at the beginning, Blind. I'm glad to hear it because he wanted to do this. You want to do this? I want to do this. We want to do this because Blind. Now let me just get to this. Blind was the one that was on the fence about this show, and he liked yesterday's episode. Okay, but Blind, why don't you tell your side of things? Go ahead, Blinded.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to hear. I don't even remember the lyrics of the song. God damn it. But this show, oh my God, what the fuck is going on with this show? The conversation around the show is totally bizarre. For a show that is, like I said, I still haven't moved up my score. Hold on, I'm not sure if the my fan is blowing in my mic.
I don't
Um,
think so.
Okay, yeah, I haven't moved up my score, right? Because it's really depending on that last episode. Because we talked about it's funny, we talked about what was going to happen and pretty much what we guessed, what people like Degrassi in the chat were saying that, hey, this episode is going to be a flashback episode. It's going to be from Saul's perspective, and we're going
Yeah.
to see, and I had some guess. My guess was, yeah, he kind of did some brainwashing to what's her name, Osha,
Do you find
and
it how
the whole.
creepy
I
how
remember I kept saying for weeks on end. I'm like, that line in episode 3 where the little girl's like, "I'm gonna kill you," and I kept saying that's such a weird line. That doesn't make any sense, right? I kept saying that
yeah.
over and over again because I knew I'm
Do
like,
you,
there's no way that they would put that in there, right?
do you
Because
find
it
it how
doesn't feel
creepy?
genuine.
Do you find it how creepy how Saul was after Osha to be his Padawan, like so desperate?
Well, yeah, I seen because I was in little movie perps chat for a little bit while I was editing, and yeah, that was the thing that kept coming up. Like I said, this episode, I think, again, mixed feelings on the episode. Him wanting a Padawan, I feel like again, I think we're gonna need a
Here's
little bit more explanation to that.
so like the thing about this before we get into this. So Saul was not a master then. Like
No, he wasn't a master. He was not a master,
what's in
and
between master and Padawan?
I'm not sure. A knight? Is it a knight? I don't know.
Knight? I did
I don't know.
because
Let's
we
Google
know
it.
Carrie Moss's character was like the
She was
leader
the
of the
might. The
yeah
yeah, she was the
master.
leader, and I'm guessing uh Saul and the the Wookiee Jedi weren't masters. But she says this is why I wanted to do this video with you or this live stream is because Grace Randolph's take on this is absolutely hilarious. I think it's even worse than the dude saying that this show is like woke and I mean, because we know they're gonna say that, and maybe some of their points, like, okay, yeah, we know what they're gonna say, right? From their
Mhm.
perspective. But from her perspective, for someone who was hyping up the show and all this stuff, and then this episode drops, and this video is pretty much outright saying that I mean, without saying it, that she really wasn't watching the show. She this entire time she's doing breakdowns
I
talking about Saul, and she
I
had no clue that this was gonna come up. I'm
I
confused.
notice I notice about Grace when she reviews movies and TV shows. She sometimes doesn't get what the show or movie is about, and she
Well,
sees it as a
it's not even just that. It's almost like she's watching the show and
paying attention.
not paying
Yeah,
attention and connecting the dots because it's like in throughout okay first off throughout the show we clearly were saying hey Saul there's something going on with Saul right because
yeah.
he's not totally connected to the force. He's also very suspicious, like he's almost withholding information, and he's not a very clear-cut character, and that's why I thought he was the most interesting character on the show, because the twins, I feel like the twins are not explored well enough. Even though the show is about them, it's almost like,
It's
you know,
almost like it's
with
become a
May,
show about Saul.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, yes. Sorry,
Um,
I had to cough. But like May, her motivation wasn't very clear. I still think it's not very clear because, again, who saved her? That's the big question I want to know, if they're gonna
I think it's
tell
that
us in the
witch.
next
I think
episode.
it's that witch that saved her because when she did their
Yeah, was it the mother?
with that mother, because because if you remember the final battle scene in the episode, when she did that disappearing thing, right? We didn't. She
Yeah.
disappeared. She didn't get. She wasn't the one of the witches that were dead. You didn't see her dead body.
Yeah,
She
we
just
didn't
disappeared.
we didn't see her dead body, and she sort of disappeared, and that's why
Yeah,
I thought she was the master, because it's like, well,
I'm telling
where did the
you,
mom where did that
if she's
mom
not
go?
in this, if she's not in the finale, I think they're saving for the. I think if they're doing a season two, and which looks like it, because there's been hints about it, she probably. I think she'll return. I think
Well, they're gonna
so.
have to have a very strong hook for the next season, because
Yeah,
yeah, because I'm again, I'm like, okay, what are they gonna tell us? I feel like what is gonna be important for to end the show is gonna be, one, OSHA is gonna have to know the truth, and two, we're gonna have to either know about what happened to May, and then I think they can maybe start to peel back the layers of, oh, maybe Saul isn't the only Jedi who has this problem, and then they can tease Quimir and the other Jedi that we saw with the whip,
I think.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and then maybe they could set that up for a season two. But if they want to do a season two, I mean, if it's successful, but I- oh
Oh,
man.
okay.
Well, it seems like
Yeah.
everything gets hijacked by,
We'll be joining
I
the
don't even want to say
ability to go to
politics.
the
I'm going to
city.
say by
I just don't.
partisan politics, where it's all this like game on either side. I hate that fucking crap. I think that's totally an American thing, honestly. But I mean, we have it here too. But
Oh, is it a play that's fifth graders should not get political? I'm sorry. I'm
well,
sorry.
here Grace gets weirdly, like, oh my god, we're gonna get into it, because holy
Oh yeah.
shit, this is her most unhinged video. I feel
So
like, because it
she
makes
liked
no
every
fucking
episode,
sense.
right? She liked every single
Yeah,
episode.
you like every
Okay.
single episode, but the one with the big reveal, you have problems with. It's like, what the fuck? Like, this is not the first episode. This is not the third episode. This is the fucking like,
Seventh.
penultimate. What do you call it? Penultimate episode. Like, this is
Yeah.
this is really like, we're at the end,
It's a
and
classic. It's a classic DC with Star Wars and Marvel. It's the episodes leading up to finales sometimes usually like a
yeah,
flashback episode.
flashback. Well, the thing is, like, this is explaining all the
Yeah.
questions that we had since the third episode,
Yeah.
and all throughout the
Hey
episodes,
Jeffrey.
there's been hints and foreshadowing. Like, again, like, is
Yeah.
Grace
And
pay
the,
attention to the
and the
dialogue
Gracia
of
is
the show
right
too?
about how the two girls are created.
Oh, that they were one. That's also another thing too that
Yeah.
she messes up. She's like, how did he not know it was her? There's two things to that. We'll get into that, because I partly agree with her, but at the same time, the show gives an explanation. So I'll say why
Okay, George,
I
do it.
agree with her to some degree. But anyway, we gotta
Okay.
we gotta go. We
Don't
gotta go.
agree. I thought the writing felt like it was going somewhere. This to me
Put this on
seems
like
unique. This
1.5,
episode,
It
however,
is a long
it's
because it's
it's
long.
so
It's
bad.
long.
It's like game over for the show. Certainly for Saul. So bye, Saul. You know,
one point.
and with just it, you
Yeah,
know,
Yeah,
and it's just one
1.5 is
episode.
easy to
One
hear.
episode left.
It's fast, but not too
never.
fast.
It's clearly not going to be wrapped up. Forget in a satisfactory way. It's not going to be wrapped up probably in a way that even at least makes sense. And it's
Well,
just
what is
it's,
makes
it's,
sense to Grace
it's
Randolph? That's
all
what
right.
I
So
want to know.
Grace Randolph looks like a witch, so like I can see her having a hat of one of those pointy hats, and like
Yeah, she's the one who was this big defender. So I'm like, you know what? Like, the Chuds. I don't really like calling them Chuds, but I don't take I don't fancy them either. But they are. I mean, again, they never liked the show from the jump. Meanwhile, you're deep into the show and you're like, "Oh, now I don't like it because it wasn't what I expected." Well, what the fuck did you expect when you were
But here's the
hyping up all
thing.
the points of the show?
We watch a bunch of shows. It's not every episode you're not gonna like.
No, but she's saying that this show discredits the entire show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
so that's why I'm
So
like,
that's
"Oh,
just us, and
so
I'm
you didn't
looking
watch the
forward to
show
hearing your
then?"
comments down below. I fully expect the comment section on this video to be a real, fucking disaster. But that's okay. Whatever. Express yourselves, man.
Well,
All
yeah,
right.
it's been a
Now,
fucking
my
disaster
biggest
in
my
her
biggest
last
takeaway from
few
this episode is
videos.
thank goodness Kamir wasn't anywhere near it. Save yourself, Kamir. Take your cortosis and run. Because Saul, as I said, just got character assassinated. Oh, so horrible. Like when the episode started and they were at the campfire,
This is
I was like, I genuinely
we're gonna have to play this point
was
and
like,
then
what
we'll pause.
Okay.
a great character. What a great
I'm even gonna
contribution to Star
pause.
Wars. What a difference that 37 minutes makes. I never want to see Saul again. I don't even want to see him for the final episode. I don't even want to see this thing. I don't want to see a resolution to a story. I just don't want to see that guy again. I wanted to say it a little bit later in this video,
Go
but I'll
watch
just make
the
a point
next
here.
episode.
I was really shocked. He'd said last episode, I've been wanting to tell you something for 16 years, May. And we're like, well, what do you want to tell her? I couldn't believe they didn't use him narrating as a framing device for this flashback, particularly because he seems to have just lost his mind here in the flashback, in the backstory. So it would have been great to either have him giving some context, right? And being like, well, it seems like this is stupid and makes no sense, but let me tell you where I was coming from. Or a confession where he's like, I know this looks bad. It was bad. Like she should have framed it. It should have opened on that ship, and he's like, okay. Or they could have gotten off the ship at Brendok, and because he's also been promising for more than last episode that he was going to tell us what happened. So how is it that he did not tell us what happened? Okay.
This
Yeah,
flashback was a
we can pause it
confession.
here.
This flashback.
Yeah, the
was a
flashback was a confession, but she wanted some narration, which I mean, if the thing is, I mean, well, this is why I say I'm very like don't understand her perspective, because if that's the case, right, then we should have got a narration in episode 3,
Yeah,
because this is supposed to mirror episode 3. This is supposed to be the
but
actual truth
but
of
who
what
would do the
happened.
narration of episode 3? The thing it can't be from
OSHA.
Saul, right?
It would
Yeah,
have to be from
OSHA.
OSHA's perspective.
Yeah,
But the thing
exactly.
is that, but here's the thing, right? Because, and this is why I don't understand. It's like the criticisms that have been around from the beginning of the show, she's now voicing, even though she dismissed them in the beginning. Like, I feel like the biggest problem with the show, I keep saying it, it's the length of the show. Like, the episodes are way too short for what they're trying to explore here and what they're trying to do. Like, this is not an action focused show. This is very much them kind of like
Except
muddying
episode
up the waters,
5. 5 was
and
very action heavy.
yeah, 5 was, yeah, I mean but like
This one had
overall
some
the
good
show's not
action.
action
This one had some
heavy.
good action. This episode with the
Yeah,
Wiki
well,
battle, that was
compared to
great.
episode 3, which is
Yeah,
like the direct mirror of it,
there
yeah,
was no
it has
action in
more action.
episode 3 though.
No, there wasn't.
There was no fighting or
But this
fighting
show,
scene.
like generally speaking, it's not an action focused show. Like
No.
Mandalorian is more action focused. This show is very much about the characters and the decisions that they were making. And for that, I feel like you need a longer episodes. You need to explore each character so we can understand their perspective. And that's what I don't understand about Grace, and all of a sudden her turn to Saul. She's like, I don't like him anymore because he made this decision that I didn't like. But it's like the show has been setting that up from the beginning. Saul did something
It's
that was
horrible. Yeah,
horrendous. Yeah.
yeah. It's
That's the
something
whole premise of the show.
something he feels guilt about for whatever how many years.
Yeah, and no one said it was gonna be, oh, like it wasn't that bad. I mean, if it wasn't that bad, then why does he feel guilty about it?
The guilt is that he killed the mother.
Well, he
That's
killed
part of it.
he. The thing is, right, and this is why I say I like the episodes, because I see what they're trying to do. It's just, again, I needed more time to do it. The whole point of this episode is to show that Soul was too eager to have a Padawan, right? And was he saw OSHA, and if you notice, right, his framing was he saw OSHA and May have a confrontation, and that's why he started to really gravitate toward OSHA instead of May. And so when he was investigating, he only saw the parts where it seemed like they were being somewhat abused. And this is the thing that she misses. She like instead of talking about that part, because we'll see this later, she's like going on this weird tangent about how, oh, this scene, it looks like a documentary, and I couldn't believe what I was saying. But that
Document.
scene is important to what's happening. So by skipping over that and talking about something that, who the fuck cares, right? Like, you're talking about the cinematography in that scene, but yet you're trying to make this overall point of, oh, Soul is a bad character because, well, why did he essentially abduct Osha from her parents? Why did he destroy their entire family? Well, it's explained. He thought they were being abused. I think that's a fair case then. That's totally
Mhm.
fair, right? That's from his perspective, and that's what he believed, but he was wrong. That's the part of where it becomes ambiguous. He was wrong. The witches weren't abusing the kids. Technically, I would say, do we really know that though? I don't know. It's like the witches, I wasn't in favor of the witches either in this episode, especially what the mom did. And I told you this in the Discord when the mom gets killed and she's like, "Oh, I would have
What's in that
gave you
Osha?
OSHA." I said that I thought that was a crock of bullshit that she said. I laughed when she said that because I was like, then why did you attack them then? You were going to attack them,
Well,
right?
she didn't attack him. He
Well,
did.
she was going to attack
Oh
who
yeah.
who who do we know she was going to attack? She was going to put the mind virus in who, right?
Wasn't she doing the disappearing thing, the disappearing magic to Osha too? And that's when Soul had to
The
stab her.
Well, he stabbed her because again, what was she going to do? I mean, we saw what she seemed like she was going to
You
do
know what?
was she was either going to possess someone and then they were going to fight. So maybe she was going to possess him. Maybe she wasn't.
Thing
But her
is,
whole thing when she dies goes to make him feel guilty. That's the part I didn't like, where it's like, "Oh, I'm going to make you feel guilty now by saying, "Oh, I was going to let him
remember,
go or let her go. I was going to let her choose." But
yes, remember, remember,
yeah,
guys, in the
I was like,
chat,
"Oh my God."
remember the beginning of this episode. These four, the four Jedi, Torben is the Padawan. They go to this
Right.
planet because this planet had like one point was a lifeless planet, and all of a sudden life started to grow on it, trees,
Yes.
nature, basically, and no inhabitants. Apparently, there were no inhabitants, but the Jedi believe that creation could be made not biologically, like by
Hmm.
two male and a female, by what was it called, a virgin or something like that.
Yeah, the virgins, which that's what they
Not a
thought
virgin.
was. Well, because the thing is,
Spell differently,
Saul.
guys. Spell differently. It sounds the same, but spell differently.
So Saul. I mean, this is again another thing Grace Randolph
Yeah.
skips over, and a bit of why maybe Saul wanted a Padawan so badly is because he tells is his name Turban? Turban?
Torben. Torben. Oh,
Okay, Torban. He tells him like he's basically like, "Oh, why are we on this planet? What purpose, right?" And
yeah.
he's kind of like, I want to go home, right? Because we've been here for months. And
He gave the
Saul's like,
answer.
"Oh, yeah." He gave him the answer while Carrie Ann Moss is like, you should have never told him that because the whole point of him being here is to learn a lesson,
Yeah.
right? And he's supposed to figure that out for himself instead of you just handing him the answers. Which this is the problem with Soul and why he shouldn't have a Padawan to begin with, is because he doesn't allow them to actually grow up and make their own decisions. He chooses the decisions for them because that's what he feels like is best. And that's actually good writing. That is actually good writing. Let me repeat that. That is actually good writing. It makes the character have good intentions, but the problem is those good
I
intentions led to a bad path, right? Him being like, "Oh, I'm trying to protect you and save you from the truth," is harmful to people. And that's
yeah.
why I like parts of the show because that is different and unique. That's actually a different take on things, and that's something that is true to reality is that and this is why I wonder if this is show is like trying to commentate on parents, right? Is this like a parental thing? Like people want to have kids, but
Hmm.
they're not ready yet because they don't know how to let them grow up on their own. They have to protect them, right? They have to shield them and in some ways when you shield kids from the truth, they get stunted, right? So I feel like is that what the show is trying to say? But again, Grace Randolph here doesn't explore those concepts. She doesn't Like the show is right there. There's dialogue suggesting this, right? Like I said, the scene that I just mentioned with Saul and Carrie Ann Moss and what happens. Grace doesn't mention any of
There's
that. She doesn't
maybe
give
there's a
any
reason.
examples.
Maybe there's a reason why he didn't have a Padawan. He wasn't ready.
Yeah, he wasn't ready. I think they should explore it a bit more, but he wasn't ready, and it was because of this decision here that he
Yeah.
made. Right. And that's
Yeah,
why the
still
episode is called
learning.
Choice, because it was his choice, not OSHA's choice. It was his choice.
Yeah.
Right. And that caused a lot of issues. So yeah, we'll have to continue.
So I felt this episode, and I agree that those speeder bikes looked awful, by the way. Awful. I have a theory about this, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Cares.
But when the episode started, when I first thought that it was getting a little bit off,
For phone plans like you've never
no.
seen, try the other side with Fizz.
was when Lee Jung-jae began walking. And he had these really exaggerated movements, like he was in some kind of experimental theater project, and he was playing to the cheap seats in the back, right? I'm like, what's with the exaggerated walking? Like, I thought it was a really weird creative choice, but I like Lee Jung-jae so much, and I
It's called being careful. And observing. You know, that's what it's called. That's the kind of walk it is.
like him so much on the show, I was like, let's see where he's going with it. And then when they started to show scenes from episode 3 from a different perspective, and it made it seem like we were watching those scenes be filmed for the show.
Now this
rather
is
than watching
where
them
she
from a
goes on
different
this tangent that I was talking about.
Okay.
Because this instead of talking about how the scene is important, she talks about this. Now play it. It's so
Okay.
fucking
Tell
bizarre.
me when to stop.
Yeah, okay.
That was odd. Now, even there, I was like, maybe the picture on my laptop is too clear because I usually watch these episodes on my television. I was like, maybe it's giving the show an unfair documentary feel. And I wonder, for those of you who have hated these episodes from the beginning, maybe they don't play well with a really crystal clear picture. Like, have you been watching them on your laptop or like a computer or your phone? Maybe that's one of the things that have set us apart, right? I mean, because it really did look awful. I was just like, it looks so bad. So I'd be curious to know, for both groups, those who have been enjoying the show and those who haven't, where are you watching it? Because Tom Cruise says that take off that turn off motion blur, turn it back on or whatever. So I think it makes a very big difference. But then not just Saul, but every character
pause.
lost their minds. They lost their damn minds.
So you see how that whole scene that was crucial to why
Yeah.
Saul thought OSHA and May were in harm's way. She talks about how, was the scene too dark? I was watching it on my laptop and then it didn't look good and blah blah. What the hell does that have to do with the scene? She's not talking about how the cinematography is reflecting the story. She's just saying, I was watching on my computer screen and it looked kind of dark and I was confused of what was going on. It looked like a documentary, but all these things that weren't true. I watched the episode on an iPad, okay, and I have no clue what she's talking about.
I watched it on TV. I was seeing it perfectly. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
it was
off, but-
perfectly fine. I have zero clue what she's talking about.
Why is she talking
And
about documentary too? Like documentary that look nothing.
Yeah,
like
it's literally him documentary. Like what the hell is she even talking about? It's from he's sneaking around watching
Yeah.
them and it's from a distance.
Yeah.
So how like you're going to film that scene in a way where you have
it's zoomed
Saul
out.
sneaking. It's zoomed out. It's from a different perspective, not a traditional perspective, and it's from a perspective where he's not getting the entire picture, which is part of why the scene is filmed that way. That's part of the storytelling. And Grace Randolph, this is why I say Grace Randolph this is why it made me fucking pissed watching this video, because I'm like, you're the one. These people always talk about. I'm going to use this because, again, I was watching a little movie perp stream, and I don't like using this term, right? But media literacy. Now, I know a lot of people, like for me, in my case, I had courses where I did study film. I went to film school, right? And I know how to look at something, break it down, and then try to analyze it, come up with my own claim, right? Or thesis, and base it around evidence from the film, whether it's the editing, whether it's the cinematography, whatever it is, right? To make my own point. And the problem is with a lot of people online, and I know not everybody has that background or education. I'm not blaming them for that. But the problem is with someone like Grace Randolph, who does reviews in a way that is it's casual reviews. The problem is you're not giving evidence to support your claims. You're just making a bunch of assumptions or throwing things out there, and you're not saying how it actually connects to things. She makes a claim saying that these Jedi are like social workers. In my opinion, I never got any type of social work feeling from them. Maybe because I know what social workers do. They don't just show up out of the blue and go, I'm going to take kids. That whole scene was especially from Carrie Ann Moss' perspective, she was trying to say hey, we shouldn't really be interfering. And she also makes
Okay.
another point of claiming that they're like missionaries. Well, missionaries again, and instead of explaining what a missionary is for the viewer, she goes, "Oh yeah, I can see that." But missionaries are people who are spreading the word of their religion. They are not spreading the word of the Jedi religion. Their whole claim is, "Oh, they discovered these little girls
They're
and
forced,
Saul
no.
is drawn to them and he goes and
They're
investigates, puzzles together his own perspective on, hey, these girls are being abused
forced.
potentially, and then makes that decision. So, what the fuck? Where did she get all this? Oh, they're there to essentially help them. They're only going in really because they make an assumption that, oh, the girls might be force sensitive, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
why
then
they're going in. Not because, oh, the children are in danger. I mean, they're
no.
it's really because, hey, it's really both, right? He's really going in there, and that's why it's makes his character look bad, but that's the point of the show, right? He's kind of a conflicted character, and that just goes over Grace Randolph's head, right? Completely, because she doesn't even bring that up.
No.
It's ironic that the episode is called Choice because it seemed like no character had any choice, that they were all taken over by the showrunner, Leslie Headland, and
Wrong.
the episode's 3 writers. It took 3 people to
It's wrong what she's saying. I can't believe this show is not even that. Like I said, the show is not a top tier show by any means. I understand the criticisms, but her criticisms make zero fucking sense. The show, the reason why it's called Choice is because the third episode is called Destiny. It's
Yeah.
a mirror. It's a total opposite. Your destiny is already chosen for you. It's a predetermined path, which is what Osha thought she was on. She thought her destiny was to be with the Jedi, but it turns out no, it wasn't. Her destiny was really chosen by her by the Jedi. That's the difference. That someone had a choice in her destiny. And that if someone ever told you, "Hey, this your life was someone actually orchestrated it and made that decision for you," I mean, you would feel a type of way. Trust me, you would feel like you have no agency, you have no identity, no personality. Like everything has been handed to you, or it was all according to someone else. And that's what the show is trying to get at is by saying that OSHA really is not all of her problems that we've encountered. And again, the problem with the show is we didn't really see those problems, but the point is that her problems were someone else's choice. It was Saul's choice. And instead of listening, taking a stand back and realizing, hey, you shouldn't interfere, right? It's kind of like shit. Not archaeologists, in anthropology, right? You know anthropology? Because this
Yeah.
is kind of important too, right? Like when you would see a nation or like a tribe, you know, somewhere out, maybe, I don't know, like in the Amazon, right? You see this tribe, you're not really supposed to interact with them. You're not supposed to do anything because ethically speaking, you could do some damage by saying, "Hey, look at me. I'm from like the Western world. Here's all our Western equipment." And there was a perfect example of this, by the way, that happened recently, where a tribe got introduced to the internet, and all the kids. It's funny and kind of sad at the same time. The kids in the tribe became addicted to porn. They were addicted to porn and they
Oh
didn't want to
yeah.
do any working. I'm not sure if you heard this. The tribe leader was like, "Hey, all these kids, they're addicted to porn and they don't want to leave the house because all they want to do is just jerk off." It was crazy. This was in the news. You can find this. Absolutely crazy. And that was because the tribe it came in contact with the Western world. And honestly, I think ethically speaking, we shouldn't be doing stuff like that. We should just let people do whatever they want. If that's their culture, let them do that, right?
Well,
Unless it's going to harm us, right? Then we have to protect ourselves from that. But in reality, we really should keep a distance from. That's my perspective, at least, because
I
I think, yeah.
I
But
know
anyway,
that that they were supposed probably was supposed to lead them with good intentions.
right.
That's better than the history of humanity. Because when we go interfere in when humans went to fear other tribes, stuff like that, we slaughter them,
Yeah, we end up slaughtering them,
or we make them.
or yeah, we it causes a massive
Yeah,
disservice. So, and I think that's also what the show was trying to get at too, is by saying that the Jedi interfered into these people and their culture
and
without knowing the full picture. They did harm. They caused harm.
individuals feel like the Jedi have oh are forcing their way in, like
Right.
like the Jedi but they really can't. Jedi don't have major political power in the world. Aren't they just supposed to be like diplomats, peacemakers? Not exactly.
I
I don't know.
mean,
Not
well,
exactly. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I feel like they do have some political backing to them, right?
Yeah,
They were
they
in
do.
rule, and they're in what's that planet called? The city planet that Coruscant. Yeah.
They do. They do
Um.
to get a little bit political, but they're not but they don't want for off to become senators or whatever they call it, whatever
No, they're
else.
not senators, but I think
Unless
the
they,
show also too touches on that too, because what Soul did, his and this is again a thing that I like about the show, was that Soul made his decision um because yeah, he thought it was a good thing to do to help these people, but his underlying motive for it was kind of wrong. You know
selfish
what
as
I
heck.
mean? Like, it was selfish. It wasn't, it's like the emotional part was driving him. And
You know what's proof? You know what's proof?
mm,
And we know that's probably far off on Grace's video. The bridge part, when each girl was on each side, he tried to save both of them,
right.
but guess
But
he,
he kind of let
yeah,
May fall. He really did. He
yeah,
was just like, he didn't
exactly,
try to help her. He didn't try to jump or put himself in harm's way. Because if he wanted to put himself in harm's
exactly.
way, right, he could have. Like, if that was his true intention. But he just wanted to help Osha because he felt some
He
type of connection to her
and he knew
specifically.
because he knew Osha would be his Padawan, and May probably would end up being rebellious if
Right.
he went off. And that's not a good thing in the Jedi. Where Osha would be more respectful, right, in the order.
Right. Well, I think also too that the Jedi,
Because
and this is
May doesn't
something that
want
I
to be a
don't.
Jedi. May
I
does
mean,
not.
this is why I don't find the Jedi that interesting, and I understand why there's some people complaining about this, because yeah, if the Jedi is supposed to be this like stoic, they're emotionless, I don't know, monks who fight, and I don't
Not
know,
in
right?
this
Like, if
episode.
that's what people want, then that's not what the show is trying to do at all, and I can understand why they're upset. But at the same time, personally speaking, I don't know how long you could do that, because that's incredibly boring. Like, the Jedi are very boring. And this is the first time I feel like, oh shit, we're actually seeing some type of conflict. Like, they're actually their whole sort of morality and their whole
They're
judgment
being
is messed
they're
up.
being human.
Yeah, they're being human, which is
They-
interesting. Why do you want to see plain people who are always right in a movie or a TV show? That's also another thing too that Grace always talks about. Like, oh, he's I think she says this, and I could be wrong, but I think she was talking about how he was emotionally driven, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty much everybody on the planet. I
Yeah,
know we have people like to say they're logical and whatever, but realistically, the truth is we're emotionally driven. We either are greedy, right? We say, like, look at these people who say they hate the show. Do they really hate the show, or are they saying that to make money, right? or like Grace Randolph, who is pretty much saying, "Oh yeah, I love the show," and then she has to almost have this emotional reaction when people say, "I don't like it," because she goes on the defensive and she has to defend the show. But now when the show is not good
She goes the
to her
opposite.
standards, yeah, now it's like, oh yeah, oh well, she doesn't also want to give the other side credit too for saying the same. She's saying the same shit that they were saying, but yet, oh, I'm not gonna give them credit. I stand by the fact that I still like the show. I don't understand. Do you like the show really? That's what I have to question Grace Randolph, because I don't know how you could watch this episode, watch all the previous episodes, and it's not like everybody else, right? If you're like Grace Randolph and you watch this and you're like, you know what, this is the episode that made me fall off, that's fine. I'm not even criticizing you. I'm criticizing Grace because her whole thing is to do breakdowns and analyze all of this shit. So realistically, why is she surprised by this? In
I
all her
don't.
other episodes,
I
this is
don't
what she
go.
was alluding to. This
I
same
don't go.
episode.
I don't go to Grace for breakdowns or spoilers or Easter eggs. I don't. When I go on YouTube, I don't go to Grace for that because she's not the best at it.
No, but to her point, I mean, what's the point of doing breakdown videos when you're not even analyzing the material? You're
Yes,
just like
true.
making up shit and just projecting what you want onto the show. That's
That's
the
true.
problem. That's the problem with this divide, this bullshit culture war. Because I hate the culture war. Both sides, I think, are full of crap. I don't agree with any of these people. I'm not. I've never been politically motivated. I've never. I hate picking a side because the truth
Yeah,
is there's some things that are true on both sides, right? And there's some stuff that is wrong on both
I
sides.
I just hate really extreme stuff, and they go
Yeah, I
extreme.
hate that. Oh, I hate that too. I hate people who are extreme. But like this show has just only become about like the politics, and
What?
and it's annoying. It's really annoying.
It's because there's women involved in
It's
politics.
like it's like you can criticize the show, but then it's like it's turned into this like weird division where it's like you hate the show because it stands for everything wrong
I,
politically. Like what the fuck is going on? It's a
there's
fucking
no really.
Star Wars show.
There's no. If you watch the show, there's really nothing political in the show. There's not. There's not
No, I don't know what is fucking political about the show.
because. And you
Is
got
it,
some
it
people on the other. You got some people like Echo Base, like it's insulting. It's blasphemy. The show is blasphemy to God. The God.
it's a fucking Star Wars show. Like
Yeah,
if you want to go that, if you want to say it's
it's gonna happen to
blasphemy, then
Agatha again.
the
Those
entire Star Wars is
I know.
blasphemous.
I know you're
Like
not
what the
hyped
fuck is he
about. I
talking
know you're
about?
not hyped about the Agatha show, but it's gonna be the same thing with some of those people with Agatha.
Well, it's gonna be like this with everything.
I
I even bet Deadpool, Wolverine, there's something they're gonna get. They're gonna go Deadpool and Wolverine is like some
It's
gay
Rogue.
agenda.
There's Lady Deadpool in there or something.
Well, no, they're gonna say, oh, Deadpool and Wolverine, it's like,
A
it's
gay.
like they're like a gay couple,
Well, they kind of
right?
I mean, well, they kind of make it. They're not really, but like, yeah, I
But
know.
they will say like as long as like the creators of the show doesn't pretty much come out and like give them reassurance that everything is okay, right? Then they're not going to praise it at all because it's again, I keep saying this is like a political battleground for these people. And it's like it's so weird because it's like first off one, it's like has stories been political? Yes. I mean, stories have always had some type
It's
of
Star Trek.
morals. Yeah, some type of yeah. Look at Star Trek, right? Star Trek was like at for its time,
Star Wars
it
is
was
always
progressive.
Star Wars is always about democracy versus fascism.
Yeah, but that's problematic today, Aaron.
Oh,
Don't you know that
oh,
we can't say
fascism is
fascism?
problematic. Huh? Talking about fascism is
Yeah,
very problematic. Oh,
it's
uh,
problematic because so many people dilute the word and now it means nothing
Star Trek's
and blah
always
blah
been more
blah. It's like
political. Star Trek's always been more political than Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, there's like I don't really understand this, right? Why can't people look at something and go, like have a conversation about it, like we're doing with this fucking show, that we're actually sitting down and talking about, I didn't like this scene or whatever. I like this idea. Like it's always got to be, you know, oh, this one thing in the show, it turned me off completely and I hate the show and blah blah blah. It's like, what the fuck? Like I honestly have to question some of these people because this is entertainment and I have to wonder, like, do they do this in their real life? Like, do you just like, oh, someone mentioned something that you disagree with
What
politically and you
is
just lose your shit?
why is she Leslie Headland look like Gina Carano a bit in that pic?
Yeah, I
She,
don't
she,
I
she
don't know.
she
She
does
looks
look like
kind of
Gina
weird with the
Carano.
glasses on, but
She looks like Gina Carano with glasses.
yeah, she kind of does. With highlights too, with highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
Oh
she
my
is Gina Carano in disguise.
so she sabotaged the show to make it bad
You
or
know, if
something?
she was, all these people would like flip and be like, she was purposely trying to destroy Star Wars. You see?
Yeah.
She pretended to be a lesbian just to destroy this entire fucking franchise
Franchise.
for us. Yeah, you know how these people are. They would honestly say, honestly, I'm out for blood on all these people now because this is so infuriating. This is like, well, one, I'm glad I also don't pay attention to this stuff. I just saw this in my feed because I was curious, watched the entire thing, and I was just like, I told Aaron, I was just like, we had to talk about this. This is such fucking bullshit she was pushing with this video. And all the people in our comment section who are all, we need to
Sims.
also get away from this too. People, think for your fucking selves, man. Fucking come to your own conclusion. What happened to people? People are so like they need someone to validate their opinion. They need
You need to
Grace
be
Randolph to
liked.
come out and tell them how to
Yeah.
think. What the fuck?
You need to be
What the
liked. That's why,
hell is
right?
going on the
You need
internet?
you need to be liked. That's what the people on the internet. You need to be liked.
But
So
is it
they'll
really?
say
It used to be like that, but I feel like it's gotten worse.
Grace Randolph's not gonna like it. Oh my Grace Randolph's whatever.
Oh my gosh. This is
John
this
Campbell. Oh, I don't know if John Campbell did a video on this because I think he stopped watching. He probably watched it and quit. I
probably.
bet
I mean, at this point, I don't blame the people who stopped watching the show, but
I just
it is
I just
what it
want
is. But this was
Destroy
like
this show and a character assassinate Saul. Like how
Saul.
if
character
all these characters had
assassinate
taken
Saul.
Saul.
over the way NSA had taken over Torben, or the entire Coven had taken over Kalnaka. Like these characters just started to act inexplicably. You were like, what the hell are you doing? Clearly, Osha and May seemed like very happy children. So there was no urgency and no need for Saul to break into their home. That was insane. And he had to aggressively break into their home.
Yes,
It's like,
that's the
elevator's not working.
point.
I couldn't.
That is the fucking that is the fucking point. Does she not understand that? Does she not
Yeah.
understand that you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, he was going in, breaking into their thing, looking around and came to his own conclusion, and you're like, I see what he was trying to do there, but that's also fucked up what he did. Because
So
we
that
also know the whole story now. Because they were actually what
breaking.
OSHA remembered was that they were a loving family. And they were
Yeah.
just, one snap of a finger, all of a sudden her sister's dead, her mom's dead, everybody's dead. As a kid, what are you supposed to think about that? That's what you're supposed to like this is what I don't understand, right? With Grace Randolph, and she's done this before. It feels like because a movie is depicting something, you have to agree with it. Why are these people who are so fucking, and I hate saying this again, but I'm going to say this, but are so ideology driven, like Grace Randolph or the Chuds? Why do they do this? This is weird behavior where they're watching something and they go, well, if the filmmakers are showing this, this is an endorsement. When? What the fuck? Is that how you think? Holy shit. Like, we need some Grace Randolph. if I was if I was Grace Randolph's therapist, right, I would tell her get off Twitter because it's warping your fucking brain to the point where you're projecting things into entertainment and trying to make it seem like that's an omission. They agree with this.
Yeah.
No, they
yeah.
don't. No,
Yeah.
they don't. Like holy shit! Like I can't believe this show that is like by all means like a 6 out of 10 is causing people to have these crazy reactions. Like truly something is wrong. Truly something. Is it the water? Is it what is this? Is Disney feeding something into these pipes of these people? What is going on? What are they putting in the water?
Well, I don't think it's
Holy
Disney
shit.
because if Disney
I'm
was
just saying
feeding
that for the
something,
joke, but
if Disney was feeding stuff through these pipes to these people, they'd be praising the stuff, not the other way around, not bashing it.
well, maybe, well, I don't know. Someone is doing something here, man.
It's all
Because
Gina Carano. We'll just say it's Gina
maybe
Carano.
it's the air. She's
Maybe
breathing in that apartment. You know, the air's not it's not going up all the way to
a
that
condom.
apartment. Yeah, she's lacking in oxygen. I have no fucking clue
Just
how
like,
she
you know,
comes to this conclusion, but she's getting roasted. I don't give a shit. She's getting roasted for this. For some, if you defended the show and now you flip on a dime for the stupidest reasons, crazy as hell. Crazy.
all right, let's continue.
knock or scale this mountain. And you're like, what are you doing, buddy? You know, it's intervention time right away. So that was odd. And he, at that point, didn't even think they were the virgins.
What do you want to do? Knock on the door?
Yeah, I mean, what the I don't know. This is like the brain dead
Say hello.
brain dead tech.
Hello. I was just happy to be in this planet. Can I spy on those? Can I spy on those kids, please? No.
Yeah, like
He just really wanted a
So stupid. They're-
Padawan.
really
You know, basically just
Wait
like
a minute. Wait a minute. I want to see what the word said first.
intervention time right away. So that was odd. And he, at that point, didn't even think they were the virgins. He just
They were virgins. Wait,
you know, he didn't think he was the Oh man. I get it now. I get it now.
Kind of does sound like it's spelled differently, but it does sound like virgins. It does.
Yeah.
That sounds like witchcraft. Virgins, you have to get the virgins to sacrifice the virgins. That sounds like witchcraft. That sounds
Oh,
like something
man.
these witches would do to get virgins to sacrifice them to their whatever, their overlord. I don't know.
just really wanted a Padawan. You know, basically just like Kamir's like, I need a Padawan. I mean, he needs a, basically like the title of the show, they both want acolytes. And you know, but I gotta say, Kamir has a lot more personal dignity than Saul after this episode. But that's the motivation for Saul. Because, you know, because Injara was making fun of him. She's like, oh, you can't get a Padawan. And he's like, I'm gonna go steal one.
She wasn't making
was
like this is what I mean, right? Like Grace Randolph has a skewed perspective on things, right? Like she's watching things and she's like getting the wrong cliff notes from the fucking scene, right? Um like I don't get it. That's not what the scene was. The scene wasn't her poking fun at him. She was trying to tell him, "Hey, you know, like the reason why you don't have a Padawan is because of what I explained previously, which was he gives them the answers. He doesn't let them figure out things. That's why
Yeah.
you're not ready yet." And I think to her credit, you know, I'll give Grace Randolph some credit. I think again, they need to kind of maybe like, give us a little bit more hints as to why he's so
You know
desperate for a
what's
Padawan.
you know what fun feels like?
What?
Is she was he her Padawan her Padawan also?
Was he? I don't know. I don't think so.
But
But
the way
it
she
almost
speaks to
feels
him,
like
like
that too. Yeah.
yeah,
She was
like
kind of teaching him too, like, hey, like you really shouldn't
what's
be doing this
because
or
what's I
that.
don't know like what's the middle stage between Padawan and like a Jedi Master? Is it Jedi Knight?
I don't know. Let me see. Let's see.
Jedi Master is eventually like the teacher, right? It takes a Padawan under the ring to teach. And once a Padawan graduates from being a Padawan, it's ready to then. Because like I remember Anakin was promoted to be on the council, But it was not. But it was not.
So the in between of a well, this one I just have it on Quora. It does say Jedi Knight is in
Okay.
between a Jedi Master.
Okay.
Yeah, they're trading to be. So I think he was a knight, possibly. I mean, someone could correct us in the chat if anybody's in the chat, who's listening. Cause
Well, yeah, because
yeah,
most Jedi masters seem like they're in the in the middle ages of their life, like in the 40s,
hmm
50s, right? Where Padawans are probably like young kids, and they're younglings first, right? They're usually younglings first, then they become like but they were not younglings because they're already past that age, right? Younglings,
right.
right? Younglings are usually longer, so that's why they probably Osha was ready to be a Padawan because she was older than
Yeah,
the
it is
youngest.
Jedi Knight. It's Jedi Knight.
Okay, right? So maybe like yeah, so yeah, maybe it's like a certain age group for Padawans, Jedi Knights, and Jedi Masters. Like maybe because most, if you really look at most
Because
Jedi
you
Masters,
need to be a knight, and then to be then
a
it
master.
says and to be part of the full Jedi Order.
Okay,
So then when I guess you eventually become, I think when you become a master, that's when you take on an apprentice or a Padawan.
yeah,
So yeah.
I think it's probably because it's probably due to the different age groups because obviously young, you're Padawan, you're still maturing. You know, you have to go through the
Right.
development. Probably a Jedi Knight's
Well, there's
probably in the
still
20s.
some lessons to be learned
Yeah,
there.
there's still probably some lessons for 20 30-year-olds. That's why they're probably Jedi Knights. And probably like when you become masters, usually like in the 40s and 50s, right? They're the wiser ones, the leaders.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes. Yeah, and then they're gonna take on their experience and give it to their Padawan.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, yeah, I mean, that's why I say I'm guessing because I have a feeling the show isn't going to outright say why he wants a Padawan. I think that's maybe like that might just be subtextual. Like I really think he wants a Padawan, and this may be a little bit weird, right? Because the feeling that I got is maybe he just wants to. I mean, he wants to help people, but he's not ready yet, right? He still needs to
no,
learn his own lessons. And I think it's just a case of, when you want something so bad, that's when you usually don't need it, right? And I think that might be the approach that they're taking with Saul is
yeah,
like he wants something so bad, but in reality, he shouldn't have it because he's not ready for it,
no.
so
Let's see what
because
else.
he isn't, from
No.
what we saw.
Let's see what else he has to say. He still isn't
Yeah.
technically at this age, like, because he still has. I think it's okay for Jet. I think it's like we say about the Jedi's, where they're so stoic, they can't feel these feelings. With Saul, it's like with Saul, I think it's too much feelings. Like it's like
hmm
the feelings get the better of him.
Right, which is something. I mean, remember we were talking about that, like the Jedi are so
Yeah,
opposed to emotion, but yet here is Saul being emotionally driven. And it makes you wonder, right? Are
and
other Jedis like this?
but it's another thing. Guilt did not make him go to the dark side. He just feels guilty, but it's not made him make him turn to the
Yeah.
dark side.
Well, not yet, at least. Remember, Grace Randolph was the one who was saying, "Oh, should he turn to the dark side?" Remember, she was saying that when
I did
Quimir
not.
was talking to him. But now
Yeah.
her tune's changed, huh? That's
hmm
interesting.
Reaction. We'll talk about that also a little bit. Now, speaking of him getting a Padawan, we see how the story plays out, and we know that he eventually lets her leave the Jedi Order when things aren't working out. He's like, well, you're like, dude, you killed that girl's mother and turned her and let her he put her in such a bad position, Osha. And then when it's like we're not working out, he's like, okay, bye. And Osha just basically
She
floated
can't
adrift
force her
in
to
life with no
stay.
purpose and with no.
You can't force her to stay in the Jedi Order. It's like,
Like again, she's explaining something that is like, that's the point.
yeah,
He fucking let her go, and he felt extremely guilty about it, and that's why he kept thinking about her afterward, because his decision is affected her life. Duh, that's the point of the fucking show. He fucked up. Again,
Mhm.
I don't it's like, oh, because they're saying this is a mission of like, oh, this is a good thing. No, it's a bad thing what he did. They're not saying they're like the show, like again, it's almost like the fucking show needs to come out and tell like it's a fucking Star Wars show. I can't believe we have to do this, but it's almost like she wants the show to like turn to the camera and go, Grace Randolph, I made a bad decision, but the creators of the show do not agree with my character. Do we need to do that? Or can we not just figure that out on our own? Normal humans who can think and can rationalize and can come up with conclusions on
Yeah.
their own? Or do you need someone else to tell you? Because that's what it seems like.
All right.
family, all because of Saul. Like it's crazy that he would fight so hard to get her to get this Padawan, and then when it didn't work out, he was like, oh well, okay, bye. That's just
He doesn't say his name right. It's not Saul. It's Soul.
Soul. Soul. I can't fuck up.
It's
Yeah.
Soul. It's Soul. SOL.
Okay.
It's
Soul.
not
Yeah,
Saul.
yeah. I don't yeah. SOL. Yeah. Soul.
He's like, get a name.
She's not getting anything right, to be fair.
No.
so weird. Also, he couldn't tell the difference between OSHA and May. That was shocking.
Now
You know, like,
pause. This is
what
another
are you
part I wanted to get into. So they explain this in the episode. They explain this, what she's complaining about. But at the same time, and this is why I mentioned this before, I kind of agree with her. Now, if you remember way back when the third episode premiered, we were talking about this because people were complaining. They're like, if they're identical twins, why did they get the younger girls to be not identical? And I was like, yeah, that is kind of weird that they would make that choice, right? But then I was like, oh, but that's not significant. Well, turns out it was significant because they look different. So how did he not pick that up?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. Like I get the force thing because again they explain it. Oh, they're like one, and he was already attached to OSHA, but you would think he recognized her, right? But that's why I'm like it's distracting. It's like in that case you really should have had one actress play both twins because that's what the main actor, the older actor who's playing them, is doing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's one critique
And
I'll
also,
say, the casting. I think that was poor casting
also
decision.
Soul. Also, Soul can't really like. Even, even in the future, when we go to the present Soul, he has trouble
Hmm.
detecting who is who anyway.
Right.
Like,
Which would be fine if they were identical twins.
yeah,
And when right. And now we know because the scanner showed that hey, identically they're the same, even though they're twins. And so you're like, oh, okay, and that's why he couldn't pick up the fact that they were, that was May, not OSHA. You're like, okay, that's fine. But in this part, yeah, with the younger girls, it's like visually, us as the audience, we could see they look different. Yeah, they're
yeah.
twins, but they look different.
They couldn't find identical young actresses to play both. Like,
Yeah,
there's, I'm
yeah,
sure you could
like,
do a casting call for that.
or they should have just got one actor to
Yeah,
play both of them. Find
yeah, you could have done
a
that.
better
Yeah,
child actor who would have done, both roles then. And they could have been
trying to do with
older
Saul?
too.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
he's just a total idiot.
Oh,
There
that's
is no
great.
war so hateful
Sorry.
as a war between kin.
Total
She's
idiot.
like, he's a
He
total
wanted
idiot,
Padawan
but
so
it's
badly,
like,
in fact, that he was willing to kill their
Yeah.
mother. I mean, again, it was so
and
nonsensical.
this scene, this
It made
scene
it seem like
is,
you couldn't even understand.
What the- there-
I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, this is the part where I felt, I
I'm
don't know
sorry.
what the show was trying to go with.
I'm
What
sorry.
were you gonna say? Sorry.
Just seeing the mother with the eyes blackened. There's like there's no eyes, pupil. There's like no eyeballs in there. It's kind of freaking me out.
Yeah, it is freaky looking. But But I mean, what like Grace is like, oh, like she turned on the mother, right? But the mother I mean, let's be honest, right? In this case, if Grace Randolph is gonna make this claim, this is maybe gonna get touchy. I don't know. Well, let me navigate this and see. Let's say if this was like in real life, where she's trying to say this is like a social working case, right? Or social workers. That's her claim that this is like similar. Well, if someone started to do whatever, what you seem looks like an attack, what are you going to do? That's why I don't like the scene because her powering up and doing this like what looks like an attack. I don't know what she was trying to do. What was her intentions? It didn't look
Hmm.
good. And then he goes, "Oh shit." And then he pretty much stabs her and he looked guilty too. I mean, he looked like, "Oh shit, like I didn't want to do that, but at the same time, I don't know what you were trying to do." And so I felt more sympathetic toward him because
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like
They didn't
and I
know
think
exactly what they were dealing with. Like they
right, and
seemed.
I would have been more sympathetic if she was like, "Oh, that wasn't my intention. Like, I'm sorry." But instead what she says is, and I didn't like this line. She goes, "Oh, I was going to give her up to you. I was going to let her go with you and I'm going to let Osha be a Jedi." And you're like, "Why didn't you say that before instead of doing this like stupid move that was suspicious looking?" I didn't like that. I didn't like that part. I have to be
Yeah,
honest. I didn't like that. Because it felt weird. It felt like what are you
yeah.
trying to do now?
I was stunned by that. Like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Was she gonna attack him? And then she said, then after that, she's getting stabbed. She's like, I was gonna let you go. I was gonna let her go with you. I'm like, then why would you gonna attack
Yeah,
her?
why would you yeah, and yeah, I just don't like that. I don't like that part. Because then we see what the witches were doing. They were
You know what they should have done?
connecting and controlling. It was like that was not a good scene.
You know what would have been better? She said I would let you go, but the other witch would have attacked the soul, and
Right.
Soul would have fought back. Soul would have blocked the attack with the lightsaber, but she would sacrifice herself for the other witch.
Well, that would have been I mean what you're saying here I like this idea. This is a good idea. But this is the thing cuz then that mother who died, that would have been an interesting character because maybe she would have turned to the dark side.
Yeah,
That would have made them an interesting character, like duality wise, because it's like, well, he created her, and then like I like that idea. I think they should have gone with that. I think that's I feel like the problem with the show is that it's missing some conflict. It's missing some like drama. Where you're
yeah,
like, oh shit, like, oh, that's gonna cause some problems in the future. And it's like the drama really was this episode. And it feels like they've been dragging their feet for so long to show us something that was kind of obvious. We knew that Saul did something that
regretful.
yeah, but also he was kind of a manipulator in some sense.
Yeah,
Like we heard May say, "Oh, they brainwashed you." And it was like, okay, right there, I'm like, yeah, I mean, we talked about this. Like, there's clearly the story's not being told to us correctly. And I think they should have focused on that it was her, it was Osha. Osha should have been the detective, in my opinion, who was
hmm,
maybe puzzling together the inaccuracies of Soul, even though he was almost like a father figure to her. That's what another thing they should have done was that they have the two mothers, but they don't have a father figure. And it would have been interesting if he was that father figure. And I mean, the Chuds would obviously they would have some problems with that, but it would be more interesting if Saul was the one who was the father to Osha and he was guiding her and we saw some of that and then only for her to realize, oh, he was kind of lying to me about certain things. Why was he lying? We
yeah.
didn't see stuff like that in the show. That's the problem. Like So yeah, I don't blame people for saying that they don't like the show. It's a show that could have been a really good show, a really good show, but it's not executed well
what you're
enough.
watching. Like, it's not like, oh, that was an unfortunate choice on his part or decision. And you're just like, you've just lost your damn mind. I don't even know what I'm watching. Torben also, by the way, was so homesick that he was willing to steal children away from their family if it got him to go home. Dude, just asked to be reassigned. I mean, that was just insane. That was his
Again, this went
motivation. He's like,
over
I'm
her
sick of
head.
picking up berries. And you're like, then go home. I mean, I've never seen, like, maybe being a Jedi sometimes isn't for everyone, even if you've been accepted into the Order. And there's no shame in that. Like, how did Torben even
And the
become a Jedi in
problem
the
with
first place? I
Grace,
mean,
right,
sure, not every
is
Jedi is going to be an
like,
Obi-Wan, right?
this part was also annoying.
He's
'Cause
like, I'm
it's
sick of
like
picking up berries.
the
And you're like, then go home. I mean, I've never
yeah,
seen, like,
let play
maybe
play
being a
this
Jedi
out.
sometimes isn't for everyone, even if you've been accepted into the Order. And there's no shame in that. Like, how did Torben even become a Jedi in the first place? I mean, sure, not every Jedi is going to be an Obi-Wan, right? But there.
He got discovered probably as a youngling.
Yeah,
Like
he was
all
force
Jedi.
sensitive.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to be this young. He's a Padawan. He's learning. He
Yeah.
is pretty ignorant, but that's
He's
the point. He's young
yeah. Hey, Grace.
and
You
he's
ever
he's easy to manipulate. That's the point that they were trying to get across. Is he's easy to
Grace.
manipulate.
All of us, every single human being has been a teenager at some point.
Yeah.
Think about it. Teenager working a job or something like, and they're not being told what this really is for. Yeah, you would get impatient. You would get like, why are we doing this?
Or yeah, in school, I remember there were so many kids who used to go, well, in high
yeah,
school, why do we need math?
yeah. Why do
Why do
we
we
need
need
math?
math?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then you're
Oh,
like, well, because math is pretty important
everywhere.
for a lot of things. Even if you're not going into a field that is math related, it's
Oh,
still
you need it for
useful.
finances, the pay
Yeah,
stuff.
finances, all different types of stuff. I mean, but
Math
yeah,
is
like,
everywhere in the world. It's the
but the
most
thing
important thing in
is,
the world.
but this is also another, this is a thing that the show is talking about too, and this is why again goes right over her head. The point isn't that, oh, he's this ignorant, like, annoying kid. It's the point that everybody has a starting point and they need to learn,
Yeah.
and they need to learn sometimes on their own. You kind of guide them, but they need to figure that out on their own, right? If you
Sometimes,
force someone into something, or kids in particular,
sometimes
sometimes they're not going
you
to
could.
click. It's not going to click.
Sometimes you could say all this stuff to try to get through their head until something happens to them. That's when it can actually finally click.
Yeah, that's when it finally clicks. And sometimes, like, it's hard because, yeah, like, kids could go down a dark path and you're like, no, don't go down that path. But then it's like, yeah, but then they kind of have to learn that lesson for themselves. And then maybe they won't do it again. Hopefully it's not, you try to instill in kids, like, hey, don't do these terrible things that, yeah, will fuck up your life totally. But then there's other things where you're like, yeah, you wouldn't want them to go down that path, but at the same time, it's like they kind of have to figure out on their own. But it's a it's a slippery slope of what that is, right? Because it's like, yeah, what happens if, like, these kids fell into hard drugs or some shit?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I mean, it's a delicate topic. But I think it's an interesting topic, and the show, I think, wants to explore that. I don't fault the show for trying to touch on ideas like that. I think that's interesting, but especially for a Star Wars show, we don't really get that type of commentary, or that, it's something that would promote some type of discussion. But here, Grace Randolph is not engaging with that discussion. She's just going, he's a stupid kid. Yeah, here's a news flash for you, Grace.
Kids are stupid.
All kids are stupid. That's how, like, everybody's stupid as a kid. That's how you learn. So I don't understand, like, you don't want people to learn. You don't want people, like, everybody has a starting point. But it seems, again, like with Grace Randolph, it seems like everybody somehow magically is going to come to some, this her belief, essentially. And it's like this with the other side too. It's like, oh no, they don't, they all want to
It's
have
and
everybody to have their opinion, like, automatically.
and also being a Jedi, that means it's not going to be like Jedi. Is not. I think what Torben expected was like, oh, I'm going to be a Jedi and then get to do all this cool stuff. No, you have to
Right.
earn. You have to earn and learn, right?
Right. Well, he didn't. Yeah, he didn't know what purpose he was trying to. Why
Yeah.
was he on the planet? But that was for him to figure out on his own.
So,
And instead of learning that lesson, right? Again, this is the point of the show, was that Saul gave him the answer and he thought, well, let me just go get the kids in order to satisfy my own what would you call it? His own thirst, if you will. I can't think of a word,
just to
but
get back to Coruscant.
yeah, just to get, yeah, he was selfish for doing that. And again, that's the point. That's to go back to Soul for what he did. He told that kid about that virgins, and that put that idea in his head. Instead of it just being like, no, let's just go on our own and he can figure it out on his own. So that's another
There is
thing
an intense
Grace
selection and
just
training process. And you think they would have
overhead.
earlier on said, he's not Jedi material. Because he's not even hiding that he's not Jedi material. I mean, you just talk, you spend 2 minutes with him and you're like, how do you get accepted? Maybe.
Grace. I bet she's not the only Jedi. I mean, like we basically we really said this about teenagers, but in general, he's not the only Jedi young Padawan, from what I believe in history of the Jedi that acted like this. Okay.
Yeah, there's probably a ton of them that act like this.
Yeah. Look at Anakin, man. Anakin acted like this too.
Or Ahsoka. I mean, I'm not even a fan of like the Clone Wars, but wasn't Ahsoka kind of like this
I
kind of
think so.
bratty kind of character who
Yeah.
thought she knew a little better?
Anakin was like it's kind of like too, a little bit like this too. They had to learn, like
Yeah, like again, like Grace Randolph, I don't know. Like, does what some of these people I really have to wonder too, like what's going on? Like now,
Jed-
like, oh, we're blaming kids because they're ignorant.
Grace, listen. Yes, Jedi's are peacekeepers of the galaxy, but they're also teachers.
Yeah,
Okay?
they're supposed to teach the kids on how to act, and
Yeah.
because they're going to be the future generation. They're going to be leading
Yeah.
people. And
And
yeah, look at what happened. I mean, now maybe, this is something else that could be
let's
interesting
go to
too.
school, Grace. Let's go to let's go to high school.
If the Jedis were acting like this at the time, they probably fostered a lot of people to have that dark side in them. Because
yeah,
because they didn't allow them to fully explore their emotions correctly.
yeah.
So
Maybe he's like a nepo baby of Jedi's. Although they can't have, I mean, maybe he's like someone's
Apple
nephew.
Pay
Or,
Jedi's.
for instance, he's so not into it.
You can clearly tell that she's like I'm not. Both you and I, we're not in depth with the Star Wars lore, but
yeah.
you could tell she's not really like she's doesn't have any Star Wars lore. Like,
No, well, she's not even really paying attention to the show that she's watching. Too. Forget about the lore. I mean, I think personally, I've said this, and I know people don't like to hear this, but I don't really care for Star Wars lore because I think it's just. I really think it's a bunch of nonsense. I just whatever's in the movies, that's what should be canon. Obviously, I don't like all the movies, but I think the rest of the stuff just convolutes things and makes it contrived and just
Grace, there's a reason why math teachers, she's not listening to this, there's a reason why math teachers want the kids to find out how they got the answers instead of giving the answers.
Right.
You know?
But also too, this is why some people shouldn't be teachers.
Yeah.
That's a position that I always had too. Because you always have everybody has this, but yet for some reason we don't do anything about it.
It's called critical thinking, trying to find the answers without someone giving
Yeah,
you the
without
answers.
someone giving your own. Yeah, but Grace is not a fan of critical thinking. Clearly,
That's true.
But he took May's blood through her shirt. I was like, that's not even sanitary, man. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? And it's his master Indara's responsibility, by the way, to realize when he's going to become a liability. She's like, he'll get the hang of it eventually. I'm like, he's a ticking time bomb. Send him home, Indara. I've heard some make the counterpoint that this episode is actually a commentary on missionaries, going to other cultures and trying to impose their own ideals on it. And that could have been interesting commentary. But
They weren't trying to
Again, they're not missionaries.
They were not trying to
And a
put
story.
ideals on them. If they were posing ideals on them, they would have a bunch of they would go back, come back to a bunch of Jedi's and force the religion on them.
Yeah, they didn't do that. They didn't.
This-
I don't understand this whole
They just
that
believe
claim.
that any kid that is force sensitive has the right to be a Padawan and train with the Jedi, and they gave them a choice too. Like,
Yeah, they gave them a choice too.
what
Yeah.
did they do about missionaries? Like, what the?
Yeah, the missionary doesn't even make sense because the
Jedi's
Jedi's
are not
weren't there to
missionaries.
just take the kids. They were doing something else. She points this out. So I don't even know why she brings up this missionary bullshit.
Missionaries? What?
That's just crock
That's
of shit.
ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
there's a huge glaring problem with that. The Jedi aren't set up as missionaries in this episode. They're on Brendok on a scientific mission. So that makes it really weird that they want to save the twins, especially because they didn't even know when they first started to
So
investigate the twins.
she's
they were the
so
virgin.
oh
So it's not
my
any of the Jedi's business. The Jedi should have called Space
God.
Child Services and said, you might want to do a wellness check. I mean, it just made no
But
sense.
that's
the Jedi
what
would become
they
involved.
did. Is she oh my God, this is the stuff that pisses me off, right? Because oh fuck man, this is why I'm pissed, right? So we just saw her introduce a claim from someone else. Someone made that claim. They didn't have no fucking evidence for it. But here she is going, oh, that's an interesting idea. Then she applies it to the show without finding any piece of evidence in the show to back that up. And then she goes along with that idea and says, well, if that's the case, then they did a bad job of it. But it's your, oh my God, it's your claim. You're the one who brought that up. You need to prove it. You can't just be like, oh, they're like missionaries. Someone pointed this out. I guess they're missionaries, but they didn't do a good job of being a missionary. But you didn't explain how they were to begin with. Where's the
Honestly,
evidence for that?
What do you think? How do you think they get Padawans? They when it's a force sensitive person, they believe they should be trained as a Jedi. They're not missionaries. Missionaries force their religion on them, or try to convince the religion on them. The Jedi's are not trying to do that. They just believe
Well,
that.
they give them a choice
You know-
though. That's the thing.
Because you know why? Because they feel like they don't. The reason they do that, they want to get their hands on before potentially the Sith do.
Probably, I
It's
mean,
really-
most likely, yeah. And they want
Yeah.
more people to be
Yeah.
Jedis.
Yeah.
But that claim that she's making, it's not true in this scenario because first off, the Jedi did call CPS in this case. What she's trying to say, yeah, they did, and the answer was don't interfere. That's what they said, and Soul was like, well, we can't. They're being abused. We have to step in and help them. That's what his whole. That's why he did all the shit he did in that episode. Is because he's
Yeah.
like, I think they're being abused, and he saw firsthand and he was wrong, and that's why he was so persistent about it, and that just went over her head completely. That's why I say, like, I don't think Grace is in favor of critical thinking at all. I think she's in favor of people telling her shit and then her being like, you know what, I'm gonna take that, and she doesn't think anything about it whatsoever. There's no reflection, no thought on it. It's just sort of, that's what I heard, and I believe it. Crazy, and you see it firsthand. No one can deny it. Firsthand, you
In
saw
this
that.
situation to begin with. On that note, for a show that's hallmark is being progressive, like that's the Acolyte's whole thing, which I thought at first was commendable. Now, though, why would a progressive show not just make missionaries evil, but even more so make social workers, depict them as inept and dangerous?
Why
What a
would they?
dangerous,
Holy
weird choice
shit!
for
What
this
the?
show? 'Cause at
What
first,
the?
you thought
What
they were
is
making
she
social workers from heroic,
saying?
which I thought.
Let's. Oh, what is she saying?
This is going
Am
off
I
the
am I
rails.
losing my mind?
No,
Am
she's
I
going off the
losing
rails.
my mind? Right? Where she says missionaries are evil? What is she talking about? Missionaries have always been pretty controversial, I feel like. The whole purpose of a missionary is like
To get
a religious group to go and promote their faith and bring people in.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound super ethical in my opinion, right? So I don't know what she's talking about. It's like it's all this melting pot of like stuff she's hearing on Twitter and people saying in her comment section and her just amalgamating that into her own opinion. It's like it's nonsense. It doesn't even make sense at this point.
Hey, is
She,
Qui-Gon Jinn? Is Qui-Gon Jinn a missionary? He saw Anakin. Anakin
I,
was
I,
pushing this.
I, I guess he is, but is
Yeah,
it progressive? Like, like I'm confused. Like, who's ever thought missionaries were like
progressives.
someone who's progressive? Like, I don't understand what she's saying there. How is a missionary progressive? If anything, doesn't that fit their progressive quote unquote agenda
Oh,
that she's trying to say that there's here? I don't think so. I don't think that's what the show again is trying to say.
it's
Bizarre. Totally bizarre.
yeah. It's really really like I think she really went off the rails there. She shouldn't. This social
thought
worker
was really a
should.
noteworthy and forward-thinking thing to do. I was like, what did it take? How great is that? And then it's like, what are you guys doing? You know, it's like the show turned on itself. It was very bizarre. Because neither side acted heroic. So, I mean, you can't say that it's advocating for either side. I mean, you might be like, well, that's the lesson, Grace. There are no heroes here. And you're like, but no one's even acting rationally. They've just all gone insane. Back to Saul really
I
wanting
feel
to
like the
Padawan. If the
witches
Jedi
have
Order had
gone
found Saul
insane.
unworthy of
Yeah.
having
The witch has, yeah.
The witches,
a
I don't know
Padawan,
exactly what they were doing, but yeah.
out of all the kids, you know, he told Osha, he's like, there's just nothing but kids back on Coruscant. And you're like, not one of them qualified to be your Padawan? How is he still in the Jedi Order? I can't believe the Jedi Council wasn't like, well, if he's not fit to train any of these kids, what's he doing in the Order? So if they had made that decision, why would he brought back this random kid that was too old for training, as was pointed out? Why would they say he could do it? Because remember, they didn't tell the Jedi Order that Osha was one half of a Force Virgins. So I don't understand how this was allowed to continue. They were like, he should be in Jedi jail. And what about Venestra? If she
No.
Well, he should. I mean, he should. Oh, those look good.
she knows even a little bit about what happened here.
Wars.
Oreo Star Wars.
How much of a criticism was that during during the stream? We get Oreo Star Wars.
I was looking for those one day because I was like, I hadn't had Oreos in a long time. And I was like, do they have the Star Wars ones? I don't even think it tastes different. I wish it did, but
it tastes like Jedi. How Jedi? I don't know.
and they
How
had
she
some
got this
promotion too with like the blue milk, and someone said it tasted like berry. I think it was like a berry milk. And I was like, oh, they should have brought that here. That would have been nice. Man, the Americans, they always get like this like fattening cool stuff. You notice? They always do
Well,
some
well, look at the
it's always
Americans.
so oh man.
Look at the Americans.
Jeez. I'm like, damn, why can't we get that stuff here? Anyway,
You want to be fat like the Americans?
man, no. I
flashback
think I'm
episode in her
good.
own bad wig. Venestra used to have hair. Venestra is a character from like a child's book, apparently, in like the new Star Wars books from Disney. I don't what. Okay, so anyway,
This part was
and by the
weird.
way,
That
also
was
speaking
weird.
of bad hair and
I'll
makeup,
admit to
did
that.
Endara's
That
beauty
was
mark
like
change? I believe it did. I was like, that's so weird. Like, I'm not. It practically should have moved around her face. Who does that as a comedy sketch? I know somebody did that as a joke that the beauty mark would move, but that's how I felt. Now, speaking of marks, are they ever going to explain May's mark? Like, you know, they do say it's like the one that her mother has, and is it? It's the mark of the leader. You know, I guess May and Osha were going to.
I think they did though. Pause. I could be wrong, but I mean, wasn't she the only one that stepped up and Osha didn't want to go? So I'm guessing that's why Osha never got the marking.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought that's why May has the marking and Osha doesn't.
The kids were groomed to be the next leaders.
Right.
That was supposed to be going through the ascension, the ritual. There was supposed to be, but Osha didn't want that, right? I think, but
Yeah,
May did.
she like freaked out.
And that's why I think she got the mark.
Yeah, May got the marking because she was like, yeah, the ritual that we saw in episode 3. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is because why else show us that ceremony? That was like a big distinction between the two. But if that is the case, this is another thing that went over Grace's head. A lot of things just going over her head. It's crazy.
not long term. I mean, they could be in each other's lives, but I don't think they should work together. And then there's just one episode left. They don't have enough time to explain the mark and do everything else that they need to do. By the way, as for Anastasia predicting Order 66, some people online thought this was a mic drop. I thought it was horrible. Oh, it was so bad because it's incorrect. And it's not even like she cursed the Jedi, which I wouldn't have done either. I'd be like, man, make up your own mythology. Why do you got to? I mean, it was one thing they were you felt like they were building on the Anakin stuff, but now you're like, dude, this is a lot of coattail riding. Like, you got to just make up your own stuff because the stuff they are making up with Kumir is good. So why do we have to go and ruin these other things? So instead, though, it's like supposed to be an observation.
Here's the thing. Did people compare the Anakin creation to the creation of these two trials? But we never knew how Anakin, because we have some information on how these two kids were created, but we don't have that with Anakin. So it doesn't work. So it doesn't work then because people try to make that distinction, right? But I guess there is no distinction then now, because how did Anakin's mother be able to create Anakin? He's just the Force just like pregnant.
Yeah, it just was like the Force. It was just some randomness in the Force.
Yeah, we're here. We find out it was the witches that created the girls.
Yeah, and the witches also another thing too. The witches are they made a distinction that the witches are not the Night Sisters.
No,
they're not like the Night Sisters, and they say this in this episode.
Yeah.
So I mean, the fact that the show went out of its way to point out something that we were talking about. We're not into the lore, but we were saying, oh, what's the difference between these witches and like the Night Sisters? I'm not into the lore. I mean, I played what's it called? The only reason why I know about the Night Sisters is because I played the Jedi Fallen Order and they had the Night Sisters there. That's the only reason why I know about them. Because again, I have watched Clone Wars. I haven't watched the entire thing. I'm not a Clone Wars fan. I don't really care for it. But so again, I just think this point that she's trying to make here about the Order 66, it's like she's talking about something that somebody said online and not the line in the show. I never even got the impression like that she's talking about Order 66 at all. I thought she was just, again, she's saying that as in like, one day this is going to come to bite you in the ass, right? And that's going to lead to the whole Jedi falling. And I mean, maybe it's a allusion to Order 66, but I never got that impression. So I don't know. Here she could be right, wrong. I don't know. I just didn't get that impression at all.
Yeah, agreed.
About how the destructive behavior of the Jedi is going to one day lead to their own destruction. And you're like, ooh, burn? No burn. Because that's not what happened with Order 66. In fact, the clones got along so well with the Jedi that the only way that the Empire could get the clones to turn on the Jedi was through the chips in their head brainwashing them. And even then, some of the clones fought it because they loved the Jedi so much.
No. The clones were not clones. They were actually human. They didn't have chips in their head. They were part of. They were under the control of the government.
Yeah, wait a minute, because I'm a little bit confused. Didn't I thought they were just like that was the order they gave, and they just were like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, they worked for the government, and who was running the government? Well, Palpatine. He was a senator.
Palpatine, yeah.
They were just soldiers working for the government.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases you could say, like, the reason why all this happened was because of the Jedi, but it's not like what the witch is trying to say here. I don't know. I think this is a little bit, as they say, in the weeds. Like, this is in the weeds. Like, who really cares if what she's saying is a direct allusion to Order 66? The point is the Jedi and what they're doing is hypocritical. It's not going to pan out well for them. That's the point.
I do wonder if Darth Plagueis did have some history, some witches or something similar like this, and Palpatine the ability like that to give a foresight or resurrection. I don't know, like some dark Sith stuff, dark magic stuff with the Sith, from the dark side of the Force. Maybe there is something like there might be a connection there. Maybe I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, I know people keep talking about Darth Plagueis, and they want him to appear in the show, but like, does he need to appear in the show? Like, are people gonna go? Oh, I love the show now because
Dark
Darth
Plagueis.
Plagueis showed up. Because that seems like another thing. These like,
Dark Plagueis is mentioned only once in
yeah,
mid.
in the prequels, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
That's it. Nothing. There's nothing about him. No
But the
core
thing is,
biography.
like, you know,
Nothing.
because again, I'm not a diehard Star Wars fan. I like Star Wars, but I notice that Star Wars fans, the hardcore ones that always like, you know, whether they're chuds or not, they have this weird thing where when there's like a character that everybody knows shows up, they just go, "Oh my God, this character showed up," and it's like this big moment, but it doesn't do anything for the story. Like it's just sort of like, okay, like yeah, it's that character. And that's why people may have that meme. Do you know this meme? The gulp shitio meme?
Yeah.
Gulp shitio. So that's what I'm hoping the show doesn't do, like pull a gulp shitio and show us Dark Plagueis. It's not needed.
We
I don't
we
care.
might, we might not finish the whole video today because it is almost midnight.
Yeah, it's almost midnight. I'm getting
Maybe
tired,
we'll,
but
maybe we'll continue part 2 tomorrow. We'll go as much as we can till midnight, and then
yeah.
we'll finish it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's go for a little bit and then yeah, wrap it
Yeah.
up. But I did get
There's
most of my
there's no
points
core.
out.
Okay, that's good.
There's no parallel. There's no correlation, right? So NSA's comment makes no sense, and it only puts a nonsensical anti-establishment stain on a really important important part of Star Wars
comment?
history.
Is
And the
he talking
establishment
about
in
Anna?
that moment.
Anti-establishment? Like what the fuck is she saying? The witches are
Order 60.
anti-establishment? Well, no shit. Is that what she's saying? I'm confused why she said that. We got to play that back just a little bit.
Got along so well with the Jedi that the only way that the Empire could get the clones to turn on the Jedi was through the chips in their head brainwashing them. And even then, some of the clones fought it because they loved the Jedi so much. So there's no parallel, there's no correlation, right? So NSA's comment makes no sense, and it only puts a nonsensical anti-establishment stain on a really important important part of Star Wars history.
Yeah, oh.
It's establishment. Yeah, I heard that.
Is she like the witch? Holy shit. Did you watch this fucking show? Did she watch this fucking show? The witches are anti-establishment. That's why people didn't like the fucking witches. Is she only now realizing this? The witches were clearly anti-establishment. They were clearly isn't there a line? Hold on a minute. There's a line in the show. I'm tired and I'm messing up and I heard this somewhere else. I could have sworn that this same woman on screen in the show said that I don't want my kids to grow up in an institution. I want them to be in a family. Didn't she say something like that?
Yes.
So Grace Randolph, they've always been fucking anti-establishment. My God. This is for Grace says a lot of crazy shit, but this takes the cake, man. This really takes the cake for me. She's lost it. She's lost it. She doesn't even know what she's watching anymore. What the hell? That's crazy. That's crazy.
And the establishment in that moment was was the Empire that executed Order 66, not the Jedi. I'm like, I almost feel like you should have been like NSA.
That's nothing to do with the show, though. The establishment was the Jedi, and the family is the witches. Or
she's not getting. The show is telling you this. You can like it or not, but to say that is this in the show? It's in the fucking show.
Yeah.
You couldn't possibly be talking about Order 66 because your comment makes absolutely no sense. And for a show that's supposed to support women, to see Carrie Ann Moss as Zendara have so little control over her team of Jedi was very disheartening. And then on the other side, Mother NSA has no control over her coven. What are you trying to say about women in leadership? I mean, it was really offensive.
What are you trying to say about women in leadership? This is like the thesis of Grace Randolph, and like everything somehow has to tie back into, well, this is a like it's almost like when you have minority characters, when you have gay characters or characters that are a part of the LGBT or women or whatever you want to say, any type of minority, when they are shown on screen, Grace Randolph projects that those characters represent their identity. And
Yeah.
this I feel like is a problem. You know, like when we see this woman, it's not that she's a woman. We have to see her as a black woman. You know, like this is getting, I feel like this is a problem, and I can see why people have this issue. And this is an issue that I have because, one, personally, from personal experience, I don't want people to label me as just my identity or say, "Oh, you represent all mixed people, right? You represent all people who are both white and
I
black." You know, like like I don't want
I
that.
understand.
It's
Yeah.
just my identity. That's just who I am, right? But personality wise, what I think, what I believe, you know, what I like, my interests, the things that are more deeper, that's what I think we should let these characters represent. That's what is more interesting in storytelling. And that's
Hmm.
why I don't really, you know, even though I don't care about whether there's a gay or a black character or whatever, because I mean, for me, I mean, we live in Toronto. It's probably the most, again, the most diverse city. I see people of all different types. I don't care, right?
Yes.
But I think the problem is most people don't live like us. They're not living in where we see other people, even though they're different in terms of culturally, in terms of sexuality, in terms of their skin color, whatever it is. That's not, we're not just defining people by those traits, because by if that was the case, then we have to do that with every single person we encounter. You know, and this is why I think the whole diversity thing sometimes gets skewed, because it's not so much about let's actually promote people of this type, of these background, to have different and unique stories that people haven't seen. It's no, we just want to put them there because, you know, to fill that box, you know, to say, hey, we support these people, but you're not really supporting these people because you're not giving them their voice. You're not allowing them to tell their own stories.
Hmm.
But Grace Randolph, and that's the problem with someone like Grace Randolph, where I say they're kind of like a white liberal. They're almost like the opposite. They're kind of like they're 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 almost like the opposite of bigotry in some weird way, where it's like it's not that they hate people who are different, but they just want people to just be different. You're only classified as being different, not human, not unique in your own sensible way. It's only you're defined by your traits, your physical traits, your whatever we define you as.
Yeah,
And
not as a person, as what you look like, what you're
yeah,
supposed.
because what how does she come to this conclusion about, oh, these women, I thought they were incompetent, so that means this is the writers of this show saying that women are incompetent in leadership? What
No,
the fuck?
no.
What the fuck? That's your takeaway? My God. And she's a woman saying this, mind you.
Aggressive.
She
Fucking
says she's a
bizarre.
feminist.
That's the message. And again, for a show that's about being progressive,
That's
the
the
big conclusion is that in
message?
order to not make OSHA upset, right?
Progressive.
Is that the message, Grace, or is that you projecting bullshit onto the show?
I think it's bullshit.
My gosh. It's so like this is why I'm like Grace should not, she shouldn't be represent. The show is not saying that those women are incompetent. In fact, Carrie Ann Moss' character is the one who was trying to talk Soul out of doing what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah. She was not
She
incompetent.
was the one that was the reasonable person, the
Yeah,
logical person, which, mind you, what is the stereotype people say about women? Oh, they're emotional and the blah 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 blah. But here the character who was being the most logical was the woman. So
hmm,
what Grace is saying here is wrong. What she's saying here is actually wrong. It's crazy. This is why I was furious with this. 'Cause it's just everything, every single thing she's saying, it could be refuted with evidence, with factual proof, and to show that she only liked the show. I think, and maybe this might be offensive to someone, but I think she only liked the show because it was more progressive, and she was like, I'm going to support the show because it is progressive instead of supporting the show because it's a good show that just so happens to be diverse.
Mm-hmm.
I that's why I'm like, man, like I think some people like this whole diversity, like it's on both sides. You got the people crying about diversity. I don't want diversity, even though that's what the world is. Just because you live in fucking, Timbuktu, where there's only fucking white dudes. I know, because you also, I'm gonna say some crazy shit. Okay, what? You're in Timbuktu, fucking white dudes. Okay, there's
Yeah.
no women apparently. There's just a bunch of white dudes. That's not the reality most people fucking face. Okay, I'm sorry. Right? Most people see all different types of people.
She's not a Trump supporter, I can tell you
She's
that.
not a she's not a Trump supporter, that's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, she would probably be offended by that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like some people, listen, the world is diverse. There's different types of people, different cultures. You're just gonna have to accept it. And you know, it is what it is, like, but when people now like Grace Randolph who just use diversity as a shield and they don't actually care about the people who
Well,
are part of this diversity, that's my problem.
the problem
Because
with
she
the
doesn't give a
people on
shit.
the other side, when you use diversity for everything, doesn't that make them racist? Like in that way, like like oh, this person should be hired because of their color or with their
Well,
sexuality.
yeah, there's that point too.
Like
People bring that up, that it's also a form
yeah,
of discrimination,
yeah.
when you start doing that, because it's like we used to do the colorblind stuff, but then ironically, because people started to see, hey, that discrimination is very nuanced and it's
On both sides.
systematic, and there's nuance to it. And when people point that out, then this is why we have the term woke and all this bullshit, right? And it's just, pointing out something that was like, hey, there's more nuance to discrimination.
We're
Now we
gonna
have
end it.
this,
We're gonna
now we
end this
have this.
part of the video there because
Yeah.
we're gonna continue it tomorrow. We're halfway done, so we'll do a part 2 tomorrow. I'm gonna leave
Yeah,
it there.
this
Yeah.
is, to end it off, because I just wanted to rant. I just wanted to go fucking, because I'm sick of the discussion. I'm sick of the culture war. I'm sick of this, right? Let's even talk about this, because I don't give a shit about this guy. John Della Rose, who was talking about Captain America and Superman have always been right wing. This is what people nowadays think. It's like, this character's always been left wing. This character's always been right wing. And it's always this, like, they got to impose their ideology onto things. And that's the main motivation of why they this stuff. You know? Like, you can't be a leftist and like something that maybe
You know
has
who's
a
right
little bit
wing?
of right wing stuff
No,
in
you know
it.
who's right wing in Superman? Lex Luthor.
I mean, in all honesty, what does that even mean? The character was created in what, the 30s? What the fuck was right
70s.
wing in the 30s versus today? It's
Yeah, it's
totally
very
different.
different. Like right wing and left wing is different back then.
Well, that's why I say
Really,
this whole left.
people have to remember the Democrats were the ones that owned the slaves.
Yeah. It's the total reverse now. So I don't
Yes.
understand when people go, what is left wing and right wing? If you're right wing today, chances are you would be left wing in the 30s.
Yeah.
So that whole idea of this is why I say I'm not a person who goes and says I'm left wing or right wing, because it's in flux. Your ideology is
I
constantly
believe
changing.
I believe extreme. This is my personal belief. I believe extreme left and extreme right all one thing.
Any type of extreme is bad, in my opinion.
Authoritarian. Yeah, yeah, authoritarian um, control.
Yeah, because it doesn't. It's not going to like they don't like diversity, but they always say diversity of opinion. Well, diversity of opinion should be we let everybody, no matter the creed, their sexuality, whatever, have a voice at the table.
Mhm.
You know, if and the acolyte should why what's the problem with if there's lesbian by the way, the lesbian witches, there's no fucking romance anywhere in the show. And they're just all like lesbian witches because they're all women. So they must be fucking. That's the fucking conclusion that they come to.
Well, the population's not that big, so
They don't even have kids, so they're clearly not fucking. And
yeah,
it's Star Wars. You
yeah.
know, it's weird. It's weird. The discussion, this is why I say, you know, don't be super invested in all this online stuff. Don't take it super serious. You know, go out there, talk to other
Star
people with
Wars,
difference of opinions.
Star Wars is fantasy, science
Yes,
fantasy.
it's fantasy, it's escapism. You're supposed to
Yeah,
laugh and clap and
fantasy,
cheer. You
fantasy.
can
Not
be
everything's
critical
supposed to
too.
make sense. Not everything's supposed to be making sense.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you could be critical, you can point out its flaws, but the moment
Yeah,
when this becomes your identity and you become wrapped up like Grace Randolph or John Della Rose or whoever the fuck, right? That
and
these people who pin themselves on a political
never. I
ideology.
never take JJ seriously when he said like, when he made a stupid, ridiculous stuff about Batman.
Yeah, bad like all these people that we see nerdrotic, you know, there's people I can't really remember some of these people that are like more aligned with Grace Randolph, but you know, they all do it. They're all victims of it. And I personally think it's because of social media. I think social media has like
Yeah,
warped people's brains. It's, you know, people see people say stuff and then they think everybody thinks that way or, you know, like, you know, let like I just want to go back to the days where, you know, like your political ideology, you know, like you can
yeah,
have a difference of opinion. Like we all live in a society. We're all gonna have to live together. You know, like it is what it is. You know, and to hold like hatred and to like, you know, to come up with all these crazy conclusions, like I think it's concerning, honestly. You know, so that's the one thing I want to say is like, don't hold on to this bullshit. If you don't like the acolyte, you
fine.
know, don't like the acolyte, say why you don't like it and then move on. But don't harp on this stuff because the more you harp on it, I'm telling you, you're gonna be something is not you're not gonna be happy.
Agreed. All right, we're gonna end it here. We're gonna do part two tomorrow because we have to finish it. We're halfway done with the video, so part two tomorrow.
Mhm.
Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment below. Thanks, guys.
Peace, guys.